Welcome back for another dose of the supernatural. For those just joining us, you've found your way to Whispering Shadows, where we explore the darkest corners of human experience. Tonight's story. Well, let's just say, it made me seriously reconsider my career as an urban explorer. Make sure you're sitting comfortably, because you're about to discover why sometimes abandoned places are better left unexplored. We've all seen those videos of urban explorers discovering abandoned hospitals, right? The peeling paint, broken windows, and rusty equipment that tells stories of a bygone era. But what I'm about to share with you is the account of Maya Chen, an experienced urban explorer who discovered something far worse than decay in the ruins of Blackbrook Psychiatric Hospital. She found evidence that some medical experiments never really ended, and that some patients never left. The autumn wind whipped dead leaves across the cracked parking lot as Maya adjusted her camera gear. Blackbrook Psychiatric Hospital loomed before her, its imposing Victorian architecture a stark silhouette against the steel-gray October sky. The massive brick structure, with its countless broken windows staring out like dead eyes, had been abandoned for nearly 30 years or so. The official records claimed Maya had spent months researching this location, built in 1887. Blackbrook had started as a progressive institution for mental health treatment, but had gradually descended into the same overcrowding and questionable practices that plagued many asylums of the early 20th century. The hospital was officially closed in 1994, following a series of patient deaths that were never fully explained. The thing that had drawn Maya to this particular location wasn't the building's dark history. It was the inconsistencies in the documentation. Energy readings from the building showed occasional spikes, despite the power being cut off decades ago. Local teens who'd tried to break in reported hearing medical equipment beeping from the upper floors. Most intriguing were the satellite photos, showing a section of the roof that remained suspiciously well maintained compared to the rest of the decaying structure. As Maya set up her equipment, a professional-grade camera, several GoPros, an EMF meter, and her trusty thermal imaging camera, she noticed something odd. Despite the bitter autumn cold, a faint, warm draft was emanating from a broken basement window. She checked her thermal camera. The reading showed heat signatures consistent with active ventilation systems. Maybe we've got some squatters, she muttered to herself, adjusting her backpack full of spare batteries and emergency supplies. She'd explored enough abandoned buildings to know that homeless people often sought shelter in such places. But something about this felt different. The heat signature was too consistent, too mechanical. The basement window had been broken recently. The glass was too clean, the edges too sharp. Maya documented everything meticulously with her camera as she made her entry. The beam of her tactical flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a scene that immediately set off alarm bells in her mind. Most abandoned hospitals she'd explored were chaos-stripped copper wiring, graffiti everywhere, debris scattered by decades of trespassers. But this basement was different. The floor was dirty, but clearly showed signs of recent foot traffic. The dust had been disturbed in regular patterns, like someone making routine passages through the space. The air grew warmer as she moved deeper into the building. Her EMF meter began picking up readings that made no sense, strong, regular pulses that suggested active electrical systems. The walls were lined with pipes that hummed faintly, their metal surfaces warm to the touch. Some had been recently painted in industrial gray, standing out against their rusted companions. The beam of her flashlight caught something that made her freeze a security camera mounted in the corner. Its red LED was blinking. "What the hell?" Maya whispered quickly, pointing her camera at the device. "Modern security equipment in an abandoned building?" She checked her phone. No signal as expected in these thick-walled basement levels. But there was a Wi-Fi signal, a strong one. The implications were disturbing. Someone wasn't just using this building, they were maintaining it. Following the newly painted pipes led Maya to a service elevator. Unlike the rest of the decrepit infrastructure, this elevator had a modern keycard reader installed. The digital display above the doors was active, showing the elevator's current position, B4. "That's impossible," Maya muttered, checking her blueprints. The building plans only showed 3 basement levels. As she studied the elevator panel, she noticed something else beneath the normal floor buttons. Was a keypad with mathematical symbols instead of numbers. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her thermal camera. The elevator shaft was hot, really hot. Whatever was running down there was using serious power. She found the maintenance access ladder beside the elevator and began her descent, her camera recording everything. The ladder passed B1, B2, B3, and kept going. The air grew noticeably warmer, and a deep thrumming sound became increasingly prominent. At B4, she found something that shouldn't exist, a massive steel door set into the concrete, looking like it belonged in a military installation rather than a defunct psychiatric hospital. The door was slightly ajar. The gap was wide enough to slip through, and the sight beyond it made Maya's blood run cold. A long, clinically white corridor stretched into the distance, lined with modern medical equipment. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the air smelled of antiseptic and something else, something metallic and organic that made her gag reflexively. The hidden floor was a stark contrast to the decaying hospital above. Everything was sterile, modern, and operational. Monitors lined the walls, displaying vital signs from unseen patients. The readings were active. Hearts were beating somewhere in this facility. Maya's camera captured everything as she moved deeper into the facility. Each room she passed revealed more disturbing details. Modern hospital beds with restraints, 4 bags filled with solutions she didn't recognize, the liquid's strange colors that seemed to shift in the light, and the note's medical charts written in scientific shorthand that made reference to psychological displacement and consciousness transfer protocols. In one room, she found a wall of photographs, dozens of faces, each labeled with 2 dates and a percentage. The first date was always from the hospital's active period, between 1887 and 1994. The second date was recent, within the last 5 years. The percentages, they were all marked as consciousness retention rates. The implications were horrifying. Someone was continuing the hospital's work, but with modern technology and without oversight. But where were the patients? A printer suddenly whirred to life nearby, making Maya jump. A single page emerged still warm from the printer. It was a patient intake form, dated today, with her name on it. That's when she heard the footsteps. Maya ducked into an empty room as voices approached. Through the small window in the door, she could see medical personnel in modern scrubs walking past, pushing a gurney. On it lay an elderly patient, unconscious but restrained. The disturbing part wasn't the restraints. It was the second body on the lower level of the gurney. A young woman, probably in her 20s, also unconscious. The medical team stopped at a room across the hall. Maya held her breath as she heard them talking. Subject 847 shows promising compatibility. Previous consciousness retention rate of 89% suggests high probability of successful transfer. prepare both subjects for the procedure. Maya's hand shook as she raised her camera, zooming in through the window. The medical team was connecting both patients to a machine she'd never seen before, something that looked like a cross between an MRI and electrotherapy equipment. As they worked, she could see their ID badges: Blackbrook Research Division, Department of Consciousness Studies. They were trying to transfer consciousness between bodies. The old photos suddenly made horrible sense. They weren't just records. They were successful attempts. For decades, someone had been using this hidden facility to perfect the transfer of human consciousness, using unwitting subjects for their experiments. The lights in Maya's room suddenly flicked on. She spun around to find herself facing a man in a lab coat, his surgical mask pulled down to reveal a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Chen," he said pleasantly, "we've been expecting you. Your neural mapping results are quite impressive. Would you like to meet your new host?" What happened next was a blur of terror and adrenaline. Maya's urban exploration experience had taught her one vital skill: how to run. She ducked under the doctor's reaching arms and bolted into the corridor, her camera still recording. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights began strobing, casting the sterile white halls in pulses of crimson. Behind her, she could hear the medical team shouting orders, the squeak of gurney wheels, the slap of running feet. She ran past rooms where other procedures were in progress. Through the windows, she caught glimpses of horror's elderly patients connected to young bodies through masses of medical equipment, monitors showing dual brainwave patterns slowly aligning, faces contorted in silent screams. The emergency stairs were locked, but Maya had come prepared. The small thermite charge she carried for emergency exits made short work of the lock. As she raced up the stairs, she could hear heavy security doors sealing behind her, containing the secret facility. Maya didn't stop running until she reached her car. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. As she sped away from Blackbrook, she glanced in her rearview mirror. Figures in white coats stood watching from the main entrance, not pursuing. They didn't have to. They had her name, her face, her information. Maya uploaded her footage to multiple secure servers before she went into hiding. She spent weeks moving from city to city, looking over her shoulder, never staying in one place too long. The footage she captured has been verified as authentic by multiple video analysts, though Blackbrook's current owners deny everything and claim the videos are an elaborate hoax. But the strangest part of this story isn't what Maya discovered. It's what happened 3 months later. A young woman checked into a private hospital in Seattle, claiming to be Maya Chen. She had all of Maya's identification, knew all of Maya's passwords, could describe Maya's entire life in detail. But she wasn't Maya. The woman was in her 70s. The real Maya Chen hasn't been seen since. So the next time you're driving past an abandoned hospital, and you notice some sections look a little too well maintained, ask yourself, what's really going on behind those broken windows? Some medical procedures never end, and some patients never leave. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to slam that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss Whispering Shadows' next investigation into the hidden horrors lurking in plain sight. Leave a comment below, sharing your own experiences with abandoned hospitals. But be careful what you reveal. You never know who might be reading.